Welcome back to OtakuDaiKun! This is the last entry in my lore covering the original Inuyasha anime. If you haven't seen the previous entries, please watch those first. After the fourth Inuyasha movie, it's time to cover the final act. Hakudoshi and the infant are planning to revolt against Naraku, using their newly grown Moriomaru demon as armor. While Moriomaru was sealed within Goryomaru's arm, he was freed after Hakudoshi killed Goryomaru. Now, he remains in Goryomaru's physical form, with the infant inside him. Locked away in Goryomaru's temple, Naraku continues to send him demons to devour and grow stronger from, and instructs Kagura to guard him. This is when Hakudoshi reveals to Kagura his intent, and offers to grant her freedom if she helps. He requests that Kagura go after the remaining 4 jewel shards. Again, that's 2 with Koga, 1 with Kohaku, and now 1 with Kagome. The 3 of them split up to gather the shards. Hakudoshi goes after Kagome's shard and succeeds at stealing it. Moriomaru, now freed, attacks Koga. He fails, though. Kikyo manages to save Koga with a sacred arrow, but feels weak after firing it. Her strength is fading after all this time. The wounds inflicted by Naraku are opening up again, as Kagome hadn't purified all of the miasma. At the same time, Kagura targets Kohaku for his shard, and eventually settles for taking Kohaku directly to the infant. And yet, while she transports Kohaku, she betrays not only Naraku, but also the infant and Hakudoshi in order to let Kohaku escape. She sends Kohaku away on one of her feathers, and tries to buy him time by fighting Hakudoshi. She's nearly killed until Inuyasha arrives and saves her. When asked, Kagura spoils the entire plan, revealing that the infant is inside Moriomaru, and that he and Hakudoshi are planning to replace Naraku. Hakudoshi gets cocky, claiming that nobody, not even Naraku, can kill him. However, Naraku's listening in on this conversation through Kana's mirror, and responds by revoking Hakudoshi's barrier. No longer protected, he is struck, nearly defeated by Inuyasha's wind scar, and is ultimately swallowed into Miroku's wind tunnel. With Kagura effectively on their side now, Inuyasha declares to help get her heart back, but she refuses the aid and flees on her own. Kohaku, now free, encounters Kikyo, who purifies his shard, instilling it with some of her light. So after all this time, why would Naraku keep Kagura, a known traitor, around? He could always crush her heart and end it, but instead he goes to Kagura and returns her heart. In the confusion, he also pierces Kagura with his tentacles and injects her with his miasma. Mockingly, he finally awards her the freedom she seeks, while imposing a tragic time limit on her survival. Evil is as evil does, I suppose. Meanwhile, Koga seeks the strongest weapon available to the wolf tribe, the Goraishi, or Thunderclaws. At his people's burial ground, he faces off against a 3-headed wolf guardian, but backs down from the fight in order to save his comrades. This act of kindness resonates with the claws, and they materialize on his hands to defeat the guardian. Back at Sango's village, Kikyo meets with Inuyasha and reveals killing Naraku won't be something that can just be done with a sword. Rather, the Shikon jewel needs to be purified as Naraku is absorbing it. Inevitably, this means they'll need to extract Kohaku's shard, which will kill him. Sesshomaru picks up on Kagura's scent and tracks it to find her and Moriomaru. He uses his sword Tokijin to shatter Moriomaru's new armor, but it also causes his blade to shatter. Either way, Moriomaru flees. Kagura, on the verge of death, is pleased to find that Sesshomaru came for her. Sadly, her body is too far gone, dissolved by the miasma too much for Tenseiga to heal. Regardless, she sees Sesshomaru off with a smile before fading away. Inuyasha's group arrives just in time to see her feather hairpiece float off in the wind. While subtle, Sesshomaru has proven himself to be more compassionate than before. He has people he cares for and wants to protect. Because of this, Totosai comes to him and explains that Tenseiga can be reforged into an offensive blade. The resulting sword grants Sesshomaru the ability to use a technique called the Meido Zangetsuha, which attacks enemies by opening portals to the netherworld. Tenseiga was originally made to contain the technique, but Sesshomaru is finally entrusted with its power. Meanwhile, Inuyasha witnesses the power of a sword called Daki, which can absorb the yoki or demonic energy from its enemies. He fights against Toshu, the sword's creator, and succeeds in acquiring Daki's ability for himself. He first uses it against a moth demon to free one of the wolf tribe children. While strong, it proves too much for Inuyasha to handle. It seems that even though Daki granted Tessaiga the ability to absorb demonic energy, or yoki, that isn't an effective way of using it. Rather, because Tessaiga attacks demonic energy, Inuyasha must now learn how to sense and react to yoki as whirlpools of energy. He trains under Yore Taisei, a wise demon sage, to better understand demonic whirlpools and how to strike them without suffering a rebound. Thus far, the infant's been having Moriomaru strengthen itself by absorbing other demons. He now feels confident enough to confront Naraku directly, and actually succeeds in devouring Naraku. As a result, the infant gains possession of the Shikon Jewel, which is a mere 3 shards from completion. However, thanks to the jewel, Naraku is still alive and attacks Moriomaru from the inside. To flee Naraku's tendrils, the infant abandons Moriomaru, but fails to escape. Thus, when Inuyasha's group catches up, Naraku has already absorbed Moriomaru while holding the infant hostage along with Koga. The moment Koga breaks free, Miroku takes his chance to try and suck the infant into his wind tunnel, enduring the various adamant shards and poisonous miasma along the way. While he succeeds at sucking in the infant's sealing stone, Inuyasha ultimately steps in and forces Miroku to close the wind tunnel before it kills him. Naraku escapes, and even with Kikyo's purification, Miroku's body has scars from the miasma. Reconsidering his plan, Naraku reabsorbs the infant and heads to Mount Hakure to absorb the human aspect he left behind. After noticing Kikyo's plan to have him absorb the purified jewel, he reasons that having Onigumo's anger and hatred will help him resist the jewel's purification. With his negative human emotions returned, Naraku unleashes spiderwebs to corrupt both Kikyo and Kagome. Kikyo's wound opens up once more, and Kagome's ability to purify is weakened. When Kagome tries to heal Kikyo using her bow, the string breaks. Thus, Kagome must go and retrieve a new bowstring at Mount Azusa. There, she finds a faceless spirit guardian who aims to test her conviction to save Kikyo. Illusions of a fake Kikyo taunt Kagome, forcing her to overcome her insecurities. She breaks free of the illusions by casting aside her doubts. Naraku also creates one final incarnation, Byakuya. He attacks Kohaku, entangling him with poisonous snakes, but is chased off by Sesshomaru. After being saved, Kohaku actually stays with Sesshomaru's party. Now that Kagome's completed the trial and can now purify Kikyo, Naraku acts first and captures Kikyo in his webs, pulling her into his left arm. Koga fights back with his 2 shards and Goraishi, and eventually Inuyasha's team attacks. Together they expose Naraku enough to see the jewel inside him. In an attempt to hide it until his body heals, Naraku discards Kikyo, keeping the jewel inside her while he traps Koga and corrupts his shards. Of course, Kagome can see through this ploy, and fires off an arrow at Kikyo to purify the jewel inside her. Kikyo, in turn, aims an arrow containing the purified jewel at Naraku. She fires it off, and Naraku is nearly purified, yet he resists, and his demonic energy corrupts the jewel once more. As a result, he now has all but one of the jewel shards, literally this time. He escapes, going off to look for Kohaku's shard, leaving Kikyo to die. Amidst a blood-red sunset, Kikyo thanks Kagome for purifying her soul. She can die in peace at last. Everyone curses their inability to save her, especially Inuyasha, though she's content knowing he still cares so much for her. She and Inuyasha share a parting kiss before her soul leaves her body and is taken by soul collectors into the night sky. Without the jewel shards that gave him his speed, Koga declares himself unfit to continue fighting and parts with the group to look after his clan. Sesshomaru, on the other hand, aims to get stronger and perfect his Meido Zangetsuha. To do this, he confronts his mother at her sky castle and learns that she was given by his father a Meido stone, which when used, summons from the netherworld a hellhound. Sesshomaru faces off against the hellhound, but it manages to swallow Kohaku and Rin before returning to the netherworld. Sesshomaru goes in after them, and while he's able to slay the netherworld beasts and save Kohaku, Rin is dying. He curses having ever taken her along on his journey. Tenseiga cannot save her because she's already been revived once by it. His anguish for Rin's death unlocks a stronger form of the Meido Zangetsuha, which he uses to open a portal back to the realm of the living. His mother sees his love for Rin and is able to use the Meido Stone to retrieve Rin's life force from the other side, once again reviving her. Kanna, in light of Kagura's death, begins to act on her own. She is not as emotionless as Naraku had thought, and goes after Inuyasha's party by turning her mirror into a demon that copies all of Tessaiga's attacks. Inuyasha has to fight all of his own techniques, and thankfully he proves to be more skilled than the mirror's copies. As the mirror demon gets hit, Kanna takes the damage, losing parts of her body until Inuyasha manages to destroy the fake Tessaiga. No longer able to heal the mirror, Kanna awaits her defeat, but Inuyasha takes pity on her. Naraku, however, takes this chance to try and kill Inuyasha by having Kanna self-destruct. As he crushes Kanna's heart, Naraku orders her to get closer to Inuyasha, and yet she refuses. Just like Kagura before her, Kanna demonstrates defiance and a desire for freedom. She and her mirror explode, but fail to kill Inuyasha or his friends. In her last moment, Kanna's voice reaches Kagome, declaring that the Shikon Jewel, while corrupt, still has a tiny purified element they can use to defeat Naraku. During combat, Sango's Hiraikotes breaks, and to repair it, she must pacify the various demons whose bones were used to make it. The demons question what she fights for, and while they claim not to understand the love she feels for Miroku, they are compelled by Miroku's determination when he drinks a potion that robs him of his pain when using the wind tunnel. Both of them are willing to die for one another, and seeing this, the demons reform into Hiraikots once more. In pursuit of perfecting the Meido Zangetsuha, Sesshomaru encounters the demon Shishinki, who originally invented the technique. Sesshomaru's father, Toga, acquired the technique by stealing it from Shishinki during a battle. Shishinki taunts Sesshomaru, explaining how the technique used to belong to Tessaiga, but because Toga couldn't control it, he sealed it in Tenseiga, the inferior blade. Sesshomaru curses his father's cruelty, until the flea Myoga informs him that the technique was left for Tenseiga because only a full demon like him could resist the Netherworld's demonic energy. The perfect form of a Meido is a complete circle, and Sesshomaru's attempts to form it fail until Inuyasha shows up with the Tessaiga. Suddenly, in the presence of Tessaiga, he is able to form a Meido strong enough to pull Shishinki into the Netherworld. Returning to Totosai, Sesshomaru realizes that a perfect Meido can only be achieved with Tessaiga, and suspects that his father intended for him to master the technique exclusively for Inuyasha's sake and not his own. It appears that the Meido Zangetsuha is fated to be reabsorbed by Tessaiga in its perfected form, and that Sesshomaru is only being used as a surrogate to master the technique. At the same time, Naraku tries to reclaim the final shard from Kohaku, only to be repelled by the lingering light Kana declared was still left in the jewel. Kikyo's light resonates with Kohaku's shard, setting Naraku ablaze in a blue flame. Inuyasha's party comes to Kohaku's aid, and they repel Naraku with the new demonic powers of Sango's Hiraikots. While he recovers, Naraku must rely on his incarnation Byakuya, and asks him to give Sesshomaru a piece of Kana's mirror. With it in his possession, Sesshomaru takes the opportunity to see if Inuyasha is truly worthy of the Meido Zangetsuha. He attacks Inuyasha, and thanks to Kana's mirror, his Tenseiga is able to mimic all of Tessaiga's techniques. Essentially, Sesshomaru wishes to again confirm who is truly worthy of wielding Tessaiga. The brothers fight, Tessaiga against Tessaiga, in a true battle of skill, but in truth, Sesshomaru is waiting for a certain outcome. Inuyasha needs to prove he can overcome his own demonic energy rather than succumb to it. During the fight, Inuyasha nearly falls into the Netherworld's pole, and Sesshomaru gives up on him, casting both swords into the Netherworld. However, Inuyasha listens to Tessaiga's will, and uses it to cut his own demonic vortex. Rather than this taking his own life, it actually amplifies his power, proving he can handle the Meido Zangetsuha. Sesshomaru intentionally breaks Tenseiga in two upon Tessaiga, effectively bestowing the Meido Zangetsuha to his little brother. The two are left in the Netherworld, and Sesshomaru challenges Inuyasha to use the Meido Zangetsuha to get them back to the world of the living. His provocation works, and as they enter through the portal, the broken Tenseiga becomes restored. It can no longer use the Meido, reduced solely to its ability to heal, so Sesshomaru refuses it. Good thing Rin takes it with, though, just in case. Inuyasha's gotta learn how to master his newly completed Black Tessaiga, while Sesshomaru sets off to obtain an even better sword. Pissed at failing time and again, Naraku consults the evil within the Shikon Jewel, Magatsuhi, the demon soul that fought against Midoriko. He uses his own flesh to grant Magatsuhi a physical form. Granted life, Magatsuhi attacks Kohaku and succeeds in corrupting his shard, and when Kagome tries to purify it, Magatsuhi gives her a glare that completely seals her purification powers. During an all-out brawl, Magatsuhi tries to envelop Sesshomaru in a mass of demonic flesh, but Sesshomaru is able to break free, regenerating his missing arm along with a new sword forged from his own body, the Bakusaiga. Turns out, Daddy Toga had no intention of leaving his eldest son without a blade. Rather, Sesshomaru was gifted a sword that would only manifest after he could stand on his own and stop obsessing over Tessaiga. The Bakusaiga is unique, in that the demons it slays cannot be reabsorbed into Naraku's body without hurting him. Thus, Sesshomaru uses it to vanquish Magatsuhi's physical form. Still, thanks to the bastard, Kagome can no longer purify Kohaku's jewel, meaning that Kikyo's light in the jewel itself is the only hope they have. In his spiritual form, Magatsuhi lures Sango and Miroku away with demons while he possesses Kohaku. Rin tries to help him and becomes poisoned by miasma. In an attempt to free the boy, Miroku winds up sucking a part of Magatsuhi's evil aura into his wind tunnel, causing him to convulse and bleed from his mouth while a still-possessed Kohaku flees with the shard. The miasma scarring Miroku's body spreads further, nearly reaching his heart, and even when closed, the wind tunnel can be heard. Either one could kill him at this point. Wanting her beloved to live, Sango kisses Miroku before heading out to retrieve her brother. Kohaku's corrupted shard causes him to relive the memory of his family's slaughter, forcing him to overcome his guilt. With Sango crying out to him, Kohaku defies Magatsuhi's influence, and his shard is purified by remnants of Kikyo's light. To purge Magatsuhi from his own body, Kohaku thanks the group before jumping to his death from a canyon. His life is saved, however, when Naraku's tentacles try to capture him mid-fall. Then, Sango is able to rescue him from Naraku. Sesshomaru arrives to the fight with Tenseiga, which has the power to slice Magatsuhi's immaterial form. Though, while Magatsuhi appears defeated, the party recalls how some of him still resides in Miroku's wind tunnel. Before they can return to the village, however, Naraku shows up and takes Kagome hostage, demanding Kohaku's shard in exchange. Kohaku accepts the deal, but only to get a chance at stabbing Naraku with a sacred arrow. While this saves Kagome, one of Naraku's tentacles pierces Kohaku's neck and steals the final shard. As Sango holds her fallen brother, the final shard is united with the corrupt Shikon jewel. The result is a completely darkened jewel, seemingly free from any trace of Kikyo's light. But how? Last we saw, Kohaku's shard was pure. Where did Kikyo's light go? Well, it stayed behind inside Kohaku, using itself to revive him. Effectively, Kikyo chose to save Kohaku over preventing the jewel's corruption. Still, even though Kohaku survives, he only does so as evil grows stronger. Back at the village, Magatsuhi's remains take possession of Rin, who flies off aboard a demon. Sesshomaru goes after her, while Inuyasha's party prepares for a final confrontation with Naraku. With the jewel in hand, Naraku uses it to restore his body. This body swells, consuming Rin while releasing miasma that kills the surrounding life. The miasma takes to the sky, forming a storm that attracts demons. Because Naraku's spider-like outer body has Rin inside, Sesshomaru and Inuyasha's party allow themselves to be swallowed. Inside, they fight various clones of Naraku and realize that to defeat him, they'll have to destroy the jewel itself. Naraku has yet to absorb the jewel, which encourages the party to proceed further in. They become separated, and as Inuyasha and Kagome get near the corrupt jewel, it begins to turn Inuyasha into his demon form. Refusing to hurt him, Kagome allows Inuyasha to push her into a chasm. Meanwhile, Miroku knows that if his tunnel grows too large, it will endanger Sango, so he runs off on his own. At the bottom of the chasm, Kagome finds Sesshomaru, who is protecting her from demons. They join up and look for Rin. Inuyasha recalls how he failed to save Kikyo not once but twice, and the horror brings him back to his senses. Naraku tries to convince him that the blood on his hands meant that he killed Kagome. The corrupt jewel wishes to deprive Inuyasha of his humanity, but he clings to hope by finding Rin and protecting her from Magatsuhi. Impressed by his resolve, Magatsuhi takes possession of Inuyasha and forces him to fight Sesshomaru while Rin is swallowed further into Naraku's body. The brothers battle, but ultimately Inuyasha breaks free of Magatsuhi's control after smelling Kagome's blood. Then, Magatsuhi tries to take control of Kagome, but is held back by Inuyasha's demonic vortex and finished off with a slash from Tenseiga. Magatsuhi's death restores Kagome's power of purification and leaves room in the Shikon jewel for light to return. Naraku tries to use this to his advantage, giving the party false hope. With Byakuya's assistance, he dispatches a fake to Miroku, hoping to trick the monk into using his wind tunnel once more. Similarly, he dispatches another fake to Sango. This fake is holding Rin and explains that Sango will have to kill both of them if she wants to save Miroku. Under intense pressure, Sango hurls her Hiraikotsu, even if it means taking an innocent life. At the same time, before Miroku foolishly sacrifices himself, Inuyasha and Kagome find him and keep his hand closed. Kagome then fires an arrow in the direction of the jewel, which severs the real Naraku's arm and, in turn, Byakuya's arm. Because of this, the illusion stops, allowing Rin to fall out of the way of Hiraikotsu. Sesshomaru hears Sango nearly killed Rin, but Sango begs him to spare her until Naraku is defeated. Luckily, Sesshomaru complies. Threatened, Naraku increases the potency of his miasma, forcing Inuyasha to protect his friends with Tessaiga. Sango, feeling guilty, gives Rin her protective mask and rushes into the miasma. She and Kilala reach where Inuyasha is fighting Naraku's core, and they land a solid hit with Hiraikotsu, but consequently take a blast of poisonous miasma. Unconscious, Sango and Kilala are dropped into a hole in Naraku's body, and Miroku dives in after them, leaving Inuyasha and Kagome in the fight. Sango and Miroku despair that this is their last time together, which fuels Naraku further. And yet, Kagome notices that Naraku is hesitating to absorb the corrupt jewel. This is likely because of Onigumo, his human element. While humans may despair, even Onigumo had a wish he wanted the jewel to grant. He wanted to form a bond with Kikyo that was as strong as those forged by Inuyasha's party. Sadly, he chose to pursue evil instead, causing even his enemies to pity him. Inuyasha unleashes a personalized form of Meido Zangetsuha, portals in the shape of blades that slice up Naraku's core. Sesshomaru, on the other hand, uses Bakusaiga to tear apart Naraku's outer body. In danger, Naraku has Byakuya fulfill his final role as an incarnation. While the Inugami brothers can destroy Naraku's body, only Kagome can slay his soul, and so Byakuya attacks from behind, slicing Kagome. In retaliation, Inuyasha slays him with a Meido, but finds that somehow, Kagome is unharmed. Earlier, Byakuya had absorbed a Meido Zangetsuha into his sword, and could use it one time. But what exactly was he trying to achieve? As Naraku's body falls apart, Shippo finds Sango, Kilala, and Miroku, and uses antidotes he brought to cure them of the miasma. Thus, both Inuyasha and Sesshomaru's parties are able to unite against Naraku, who at this point is but a head and upper body. In a last act of desperation, Naraku finally gives his soul to the Shikon Jewel, taking on a more fearsome form. He fights back with chunks of his miasma-soaked flesh. Sesshomaru decides to forgive Sango after finding out she gave her mask to Rin. Then, Kohaku, Jakin, and Rin abandon the main battle to defend Kaide's village from Naraku's falling flesh. Even after Sesshomaru slays Naraku at his core, the jewel remains, and Naraku's body seeps through the village, threatening the residents. The group returns to the ground, and Inuyasha eliminates all the remaining pieces with Meido Zangetsuha, leaving the Shikon Jewel itself exposed for Kagome to strike with an arrow. When the arrow hits its mark, light erupts, and Naraku admits he made a final wish on the jewel that will activate upon his death. At last, Naraku falls, but Byakuya's final attack opens a Meido that sucks Kagome in. Inuyasha opens his own Meido and follows suit, only to discover that they've somehow entered into the Shikon Jewel itself, and there, Inuyasha confronts Magatsuhi's true form. As it turns out, this entire time, Naraku was merely a pawn for Magatsuhi. In desperation, Magatsuhi sealed Kagome inside the jewel, hoping to have her make a selfish wish on it. This would make the jewel a part of Kagome, allowing Magatsuhi to survive. In fact, this is the exact same thing that happened to Kikyo. In her attempt to purify the jewel through cremation, her selfish wish to see Inuyasha once more allowed Magatsuhi to endure. In other words, Magatsuhi prevents the Shikon Jewel from granting the true wishes of its user, instead twisting those wishes into something evil. Kinda sounds a lot like a certain golden chalice we all know. Thus, when faced with eternal darkness within the jewel, Kagome refuses to make a wish, instead confiding that Inuyasha will find and rescue her. Sure enough, after finding Midoriko within the jewel, still fighting the good fight, Inuyasha continues to fight Magatsuhi's collective demons until discovering a point of light. Upon cutting it, he finds Kagome within the darkness. After sharing a passionate kiss, Kagome realizes there is one wish that she can make that will actually come true. That is, she wishes for the Shikon Jewel to vanish forever. Kagome and Inuyasha escape together as the jewel is swarmed in a warm light, pacifying those inside. The two lovers are each sent to their own respective time periods. Depressed, Inuyasha continues to check the Bone Eater's well every 3 days, hoping that one day Kagome will emerge. 3 years wind up passing, and during that time, Inuyasha and Miroku find work slaying and exorcising demons. Miroku especially needs the money because Sango has just given birth to his third child. In the modern era, Kagome graduates high school, but laments how the Bone Eater's well no longer works, until one day she can see the sky on the other side. Taking advantage of this one chance, Kagome parts with her family to live the rest of her life in Inuyasha's time. Sensing Kagome's scent, Inuyasha rushes to the well and finds that Kagome has returned. Going forward, Shippo goes off to perfect his fox magic. Sango and Miroku raise their family. Kohaku ventures with Kilala as a demon slayer. Koga marries his childhood fiancé Ayame, and Kagome marries Inuyasha, studying both medicine and exorcisms. Rin lives with Kaede in her village until she becomes old enough to decide her future, and Sesshomaru is embarrassed to have a human sister-in-law. This is how the anime ends, but now we've got more to look forward to with Yashahime, carrying on the story through Inuyasha and Sesshomaru's children. I hope that now you all feel familiar enough with the story to embark on this new journey, confident in your knowledge. Let the hype commence! Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this channel, help me beat the algorithm by liking, commenting, and sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and, most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all of my anime discussion, lore, or Let's Play content. If you want to support me directly, there are now 3 ways that all provide the same benefits. You can click join here on YouTube, or join Patreon or Subscribestar for access to exclusive vids and early access. As always, celebrate your fandom.